While Trump's catastrophic military conflict with Iran continues to escalate, the president seems far more obsessed with something else entirely: his massive vanity construction project that a federal court just shut down. Let me break this down for you because amid the chaos of this week's headlines, this story deserves your full attention. A federal judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Leon, just issued a ruling that halts construction on Trump's extravagant ballroom expansion unless Congress specifically authorizes it. Now you might be wondering why this matters when there's a war happening overseas. Here's the thing: the judge made clear that security installations recommended by Secret Service can proceed. But the ornate ballroom itself? That crosses constitutional boundaries because it requires congressional funding approval and proper legislative authorization. That's simply how our system operates. If you desire a grandiose entertainment space, you need legislative support, not unilateral executive action. Judge Leon, notably a conservative appointee from the George W. Bush era, conducted a meticulous legal analysis. Constitutional guardrails exist precisely for moments like these. His reasoning aligned with arguments presented across legal commentary networks, citing relevant statutes and constitutional provisions regarding congressional oversight of White House modifications. Trump's reaction has been absolutely unhinged. He's been ranting publicly about this ruling, essentially claiming that if people call him a monarch, then nobody should prevent his construction projects. More recently, in various speeches, Trump started making peculiar arguments. He claims the judge actually permitted continued construction because underneath the ballroom sits a security bunker. He insists there's classified information involved that he cannot discuss publicly. His argument essentially boils down to claiming the ballroom provides protection from aerial threats and missile attacks. Therefore, in his interpretation, the judge gave implicit approval to proceed. But here's what happened simultaneously behind closed doors. The National Capital Planning Commission needed to vote on this project because certain procedural requirements must be satisfied. Now understand this crucial point: even this commission's approval cannot override a federal judicial order requiring congressional authorization. Following Trump's court defeat, commission members and staff convened for their vote. Subsequently, Trump posted triumphantly on social media claiming the commission approved his magnificent ballroom project by an overwhelming margin. He specifically mentioned that even Senator Rand Paul, someone he characterized as notoriously difficult to persuade, cast an affirmative vote. For over 150 years, Trump claimed, every president wanted something like this. But wait, didn't he just lose in court? Does this commission vote somehow nullify the judge's injunction? Absolutely not. This administrative approval changes nothing regarding the judicial ruling. Are people around Trump telling him that this vote enables continued construction? Because legally, he cannot proceed without congressional blessing. Naturally, Trump will appeal Judge Leon's decision. He'll likely pursue this all the way to the Supreme Court. Although consider what transpired just this past week when Trump personally appeared before the justices. He apparently believed his physical presence would somehow sway the court regarding the birthright citizenship case. During oral arguments about Trump's executive order attempting to eliminate 14th Amendment birthright citizenship protections, things clearly weren't proceeding favorably for the administration. Solicitor General John Sauer struggled to make convincing arguments. And what did Trump do? He simply walked out mid-argument like a petulant child. Such undignified behavior, appearing dramatically then departing when proceedings don't favor you. Genuinely embarrassing conduct from anyone, let alone a sitting president. Now regarding the ballroom case potentially reaching the Supreme Court, several factors suggest they might decline to hear it. First, I'm uncertain they'd grant certiorari for something like this. The case doesn't present massive constitutional questions demanding immediate resolution. Additionally, no circuit court split exists requiring Supreme Court intervention. They could easily tell Trump to return in several years when it's properly reviewed through normal channels. By then, a different administration might occupy the White House. Legal expert Harry Littman from the Talking Feds program offers valuable perspective here. This ballroom concept seemed offensive and bizarre from the beginning. Legal analysts were practically begging someone to file suit, outlining applicable statutes and constitutional frameworks. The preservation group that eventually sued did so after the historic East Wing had already been demolished. Initially, their preliminary injunction motions failed. After amending their complaint to incorporate stronger constitutional arguments, they prevailed. Now, while military conflict rages internationally, Trump spends his time obsessing over this construction project, pretending he won when he clearly lost. He keeps posting strange photographs of himself at the site. It resembles someone posting pictures with a former romantic partner claiming the relationship continues. Look, we're still together. That's the energy these images project. Regarding the broader significance, the White House has always embodied American democratic values through its relatively modest, neoclassical design. It's deliberately not excessively grand or ostentatious. This design philosophy extends throughout our capital city, creating intentional visual relationships between governmental institutions. What Trump proposes would fundamentally destroy the symbolic balance between the executive mansion and the Capitol building. Notice how Trump boasts about being the first president to accomplish this. Of course, he fired existing board members and installed loyalists just days before the vote. These replacements spent minimal time reviewing plans, far less than typical agencies spend approving minor modifications like fencing. Trump essentially dug a giant hole and attempted creating irreversible circumstances. So egregious was this rushed process that after architects publicly criticized bizarre design elements, like a staircase literally leading nowhere, Trump announced completely revised architectural plans. The commission voting 8-1 hadn't even reviewed the correct blueprints. They clearly would approve virtually anything Trump requested, whether palace or shack. This leaves the judicial process as the remaining check. Judge Leon's ruling was unambiguous. Trump has no viable legal argument. Congressional authorization is constitutionally required. Beyond pure legality, consider the broader implications. If Trump wants to construct this grotesque, self-aggrandizing monument, essentially his personal Xanadu, he needs congressional support. He wants to build it quickly, depart after his term, and leave this permanent eyesore dominating the district skyline. Similar to his attempts renaming the Kennedy Center after himself, everything becomes about Trump's ego. Congress wants nothing to do with this because representatives understand political accountability. Imagine voting for this project then facing constituents at town halls demanding explanations. That's precisely how our system should function. Congress controls appropriations, and circumventing this requirement by accepting private donations from wealthy supporters seeking influence doesn't change constitutional obligations. That's why government exists, to maintain proper procedures and accountability. Congressional involvement is legally mandatory. Now examining potential appellate outcomes. Judge Leon will handle this matter appropriately and has already issued his injunction. Trump filed emergency appeals immediately. Consider the perspective of appellate judges or Supreme Court justices reviewing this case. Yes, courts have recently permitted some aggressive assertions of executive authority. But would any judge, even conservatives potentially auditioning for Supreme Court nominations, want permanent association with approving this architectural disaster? Law remains law, that's what judges theoretically focus on. But surely justices recognize this construction would become an embarrassing monument forever. Nobody except Trump wants responsibility for greenlighting what represents the absolute worst of his megalomaniacal tendencies. My intuition suggests appellate courts won't overturn Judge Leon. Judges generally dislike creating precedents they'll personally regret. This proposed structure would dominate the Capitol landscape as a permanent national embarrassment. The prediction here, courts will sustain Judge Leon's ruling. Even obtaining Supreme Court review seems unlikely given the case presents no urgent constitutional crisis requiring immediate resolution. The D.C. Circuit won't reverse this decision. Even if Trump draws a conservative panel, the full court would likely intervene. Those judges live here, they drive past the White House daily. Everyone recognizes this proposal as fundamentally incompatible with everything the Capitol represents. Regarding Supreme Court involvement, consider their recent handling of the birthright citizenship case. That issue directly impacted millions of lives, casting shadows over countless families' daily existence. Naturally, justices wanted addressing that urgently, even if ultimately ruling 9-0 against Trump. Such broad implications justify expedited Supreme Court attention. But the ballroom? Justices could easily defer, suggesting they'll examine it years hence. By then, hopefully a new administration will simply restore the East Wing's historical appearance. The White House should represent democratic humility, not monarchical excess. America has plenty of ostentatious, gaudy locations. The White House should never become one. It symbolized restraint associated with American power, representing broader national values. One final observation worth noting, Trump possesses remarkably poor taste. He's consistently boorish, lowbrow, and vulgarly self-promoting. Justices absolutely recognize these characteristics. This entire ballroom obsession represents everything objectionable about Trump personified in concrete and marble. It's why New York's real estate community never fully accepted him. He embodies tackiness that serious professionals find repellent. This proposed construction would permanently install that aesthetic sensibility into our capital's landscape. If completed, future generations would inherit this monument to narcissistic excess. Courts understand these implications. They're not going to enable permanent disfigurement of America's most symbolic governmental grounds simply because one president demands personal glorification. The legal arguments favor blocking this project. The constitutional framework clearly requires congressional participation. And beyond technical legal analysis, common sense rebels against permitting such fundamental alteration of national architectural heritage. If you found this breakdown valuable, smash that like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought for ongoing analysis of these crucial developments. What's your take? Should any president unilaterally transform the White House into a personal monument? Stay tuned because this battle is far from finished, and constitutional stakes extend well beyond one ballroom.